Hi everyone, I'm Julia and this is Julia at Home. I should say good evening. I am actually filming at night, so the lighting and everything looks a little different than normal. That's why. Tonight I wanted to talk to you about how I am designing and planning my orchard. I did a separate video on planning out my garden, and so I just want to do a separate one on the orchard because there are some differences, even though I'm planning them both at the same time, and some of the things, work in concert. But so I started much the same way I did with my garden and how you should when you're planting anything, and that is to assess your site. What USDA zone are you in if you're in the US, or what zones? I know there's zones in other countries too, and I apologize, I don't know what they're called. But I am in zone 5A in the United States. I'm in Vermont in northern New England. And obviously you want to figure out what kind of sun cover, like what kind of sun you have. Do you have full sun? Do you have part sun? Is it a shady area? This is all, that's going to be very, very, very important, right? For what trees you can plant and how many. How big is your area is really important for an orchard. Slope is important. But obviously it affects water drainage and there can be erosion. It affects how you would plant the orchard. You can plant an orchard on a slope. You just have to be aware of what you're doing. I've read a lot about digging swales and making berms and planting the trees on the berms. I have some hill, it's a little hilly, but I don't really have like a steep slope, so I'm not worrying as much about that. Water drainage, as I just mentioned, is important. You don't want to be planting, most trees don't want to be in water. So you need some sort of drainage, but you also need to be aware that they're getting enough water, that it's not super dry. If you're in a super dry climate, there's going to be certain trees that you're going to want to avoid or maybe gravitate towards. Soil testing is important. It's something I mentioned before I haven't done yet because I didn't get to it in the fall and the ground is still frozen here. So once the ground thaws, I will be testing the soil, and I will be doing separate tests in separate areas. So the orchard will get it probably more than one test. There's different areas. There's what I want to make, where I'm planting trees this year, where I'll be planting trees in the future. So I'll probably do a couple different spots. I will use those numbers to help me figure out how to amend the soil by putting things on top of the soil and letting them get into the soil that way, as nature does, right? Nature doesn't usually go in and till and dig and like add things, right? They just put stuff on top. Wind, we have a lot of that here. So I don't know if I mentioned, I have full sun. We have a lot of fields around us, so it's pretty open. We've got a couple trees like on one side, like on our actually most of the trees on our north side. We do have some trees on our south side, but they're so far over on the edge of our property line that they don't block anything. So I do have a lot of sun to work with, which is great for getting started. So I have lots of sun, but I also have lots of wind because we're in the middle of all these fields. I am looking into, particularly in the winter, next winter, how I can protect my young trees. So if you are more experienced with fruit trees or other types of plants and wind, if you have any ideas, a tree windbreak is not practical for this year, and even if it was, I don't think it'd be enough to actually break the wind for the fruit trees I am planting. And no, I do not want to wait several years to plant these fruit trees because they already take several years to fruit. So I am starting with a few this year and we'll add more in future years. Okay, so I talked about assessing your site. I am sorry if I'm rambling. This is the problem with it being late here. One of the things after assessing the site and, having decided that I want an orchard is, what kind of orchard did I want? You could have a monoculture orchard, which means you only plant one thing, or a polyculture orchard, which you plant many different fruits. And I think if you've watched any of my videos or just hearing me talk, I'm not going for a monoculture here. I want a variety of fruits. We will probably lean heavily on apples because they grow really well here and we like to eat them. So we probably will have more apples than we have anything else. But we already have actually a pear and a peach tree here. I should have mentioned that at the offset. And then I'm planting another peach this year, a couple early apples. I'm planting some elder bushes. In the future, I want apricots. I want pawpaws, which is kind of on the line whether or not they can grow here. But I'm going to try in the future. I need to figure out how to protect them. I would like to plant a mulberry tree. I would like, did I say apricots already? I don't know if I did. I think I did. My daughter wants cherries, so we'll probably do 1 or 2 cherry trees. Plums. I want as much of a variety as I can get. I love trees. We love fruit. I love baking pies and making jams and all that. So I'm excited for the opportunity to do that. We are getting 1 quince, which is going in our garden, which I mentioned in the garden planning video as well. So that's kind of fun because that's an unusual thing. That's not something you eat raw. So I'm excited to, once that fruits, to kind of play with it and see what I can do. I have found some good videos on some quince recipes, and homesteader who I enjoy watching, but I can't remember her channel name right now, and I'm so sorry, but I will link her below. She has a playlist on, she might have more than one, but she definitely has a playlist on quince recipes, so I will link her and that playlist below. So yes, I want a polyculture. Obviously, I'm not commercial, so it's going to be smaller scale. And then how do I want to care for these? Being a smaller scale home orchard, I'm not going to be spraying a ton of chemicals. I mean, I personally am not going to do that anyway, but I think most people at home are not going to do that. I mean, you're near your home, and it doesn't make sense. I have looked into permaculture orcharding. The permaculture orchard, there is a DVD, and you can also find a lot of free videos if you just type permaculture orchard into YouTube. Stefan, I don't think I can pronounce his last name, but again, will be linked below, has made this DVD. He has a permaculture orchard in Canada, and it's fantastic, chock full of information. I also have this book, The Holistic Orchard, by Michael Phillips. I keep forgetting his last name. Michael Phillips. And this is fantastic. I've read, I've read the whole thing once, and I've read parts of it multiple times. This is like my little Bible right now for starting off. So I do want it to be holistic, some permaculture principles in there, organic. Those kind of all have their own specific connotations, though. So I'm kind of yes to all of those, but I will be trying bits and pieces from different methods without using harsh chemicals, trying to work with nature. So there are as I said, though, there are certain practices for each. So, for example, in the permaculture orchard that Stefan does in Canada, he will plant in trios, and he'll plant either 2 fruits or a fruit and a nut and a nitrogen fixer. And just in the space that I have and what I want to do, I'm not doing it that way. This year I'm currently just having fruit. In future years I do want to grow hazelnuts as well. And a lot of the nitrogen fixers are invasives in this area. There's actually a patch of black locust in our yard that is clearly invading that I need to try to beat back a little bit. So I am not keen on planting more like that. I might look into planting sea berry in the future. I'm not sure if that is as invasive as some of the others, and you at least get a nutritious berry from it. But I am going to try to plant some more cover and ground crops that are nitrogen fixing to try to address that issue. And then I do want to follow a lot of the practices in the Holistic Orchard book, such as he does sprays that are natural. They're not even organic chemical sprays for the most part, unless there's a specific problem you're addressing. But things like neem oil and effective microbes. I'm trying to remember. I think seaweed or fish emulsion, things like that. It's almost like giving your orchard supplements. I would take my vitamins, and I take omega oils. Sometimes I take cod liver oil, sometimes salmon. It's kind of like it's giving the orchard those. So I like that concept. I'll be following that concept. So am I permaculture? Am I holistic? Am I organic? All of the above, I guess. Or my own thing. Now to the actual design, after I've thought about all these abstract things. I have an idea. I want to grow all these different fruit trees and nut trees. So I have a list going on of that. As I mentioned before, I started mentioning a bunch of them before. I had a list on my computer, all the things I could possibly grow, keeping in mind our zone, what we liked, what we want to try. And then I had to say, where am I going to start the first year? Where am I going to prioritize? So again, I decided to start with, I'm adding another peach, and I'm starting with 3 early apples because I wanted to get apples that will all pollinate each other. I don't want to get like an early, a middle, and late and then have them not pollinate each other and then have to wait until I have other ones in that pollinate them. That doesn't make sense. So I started with 3 early ones. Mainly, my daughter tried Zestar from a local orchard here, and she loved that one, so I ordered that one. And then I kind of tried to find ones that sounded good that would pollinate. So we're getting a Zestar apple, a Liberty apple, and a Duchess of Oldenburg apple. So I'm really excited about all those. And then we're getting a contender peach, which is supposed to be really cold hardy, good for our zone. So those are the trees we're getting. I'm also getting a bunch of blueberry bushes. We're starting with 9 this year. And then I'm getting several elderberry elder plants. So 2 of them are going near the orchard area, and one's going in the garden and one's going kind of on the side of the house that the garden's on. It's replacing another bigger sassafras tree that's a little too close to the house, so it's going to be a little farther from the house, and it should end up being a little shorter than that sassafras tree is currently. So those are the plants. You do, when you're doing an orchard, have to consider pollination. So that is why, again, I got 3 early apples. Peaches are generally, we have 1 pear, we have 1 peach. They are generally self-pollinating, but they do tell you when you have self-pollinating varieties, they do better when they have a friend to pollinate with. So I'm hoping that planting another peach once it is in production can help the peach we currently have. Or if that current peach we have doesn't make it because it's honestly doesn't look great, I'm trying to help it and see if I can revive it a bit. But if I can't, then we'll have one already growing. In the future, I'll probably plant another pear as well. Right now, our pear last year gave us so much fruit that I don't feel the need to plant another one right now. But I am caring for it. It wasn't pruned, so I'm hoping we can get slightly bigger fruit this year because they were all pretty small because it was just so shaded. Okay, so now I've decided what I want to plant. I have a general idea of where I want to plant it. And then I have to design the orchard, like where are these all going? Where exactly are these trees all going? So that was my next step. And I actually started by thinking about, how do I want it to look overall when I've planted everything, or, a lot of things that I plan on planting, not just the ones I plant this year. So I'm going to show you just quickly a couple sketches here, and then I will show you my sketch of what I'm doing this year. Okay, so this is kind of a really, really rough sketch of the orchard as a whole. You can see I have some notes on the side of some berries I want to interplant among the orchard or around somewhere in the future. But so these are the 2 existing trees here. This is actually a basketball court here, and our garage is over here. I actually did move some raspberries from a different location here last year. They weren't looking great. I was hoping they would root, but I think my kids might have just trampled them or something. So I don't even know if those are coming back. This is our solar canopy here. So it's solar panels, but it's also there's seating under it. There's already these trees here, and they said they're not a problem. So while I do plan on planting trees here, I'm planting a semi-dwarf variety here, and then the one that I know is the biggest is going to go here. This is going to be the Duchess of Oldenburg. But this is supposed to be the general plan I'm showing you here. Anyway, there's a little trench here, which, speaking of water drainage, as I was watching it, while we had a February thaw, it just was not containing this giant river, this giant icy river as the snow all melts and as mud season approaches. I know that we need something a little bit better. It's not deep enough in this area, and so things started going like out this way. I want it to go towards the pond. We're not going to have it go into the pond. I'm going to dig. There's going to basically making a nice little stream through the orchard, purposefully. And during, the late summer, early fall, it might be more of a dry creek bed, which is fine. But I wanted to make it more purposeful, water drainage, and then we'll make kind of like a little berm before the pond so that all the silt isn't passing through directly in, and it kind of builds up, and we'll probably plant some things there next year. And I'm also going to make some blocks throughout to kind of catch some of the soil and silt coming through, and then we might be able to like dig it up and put it in helpful places for our plants. Okay, so moving on though, I am planting the elders here on the other side of the stream this year, and I'm hoping to get a bridge to across because honestly, otherwise it's really hard to get my garden cart and the lawnmower across the stream once I build it, once I dig it deeper. And even now with the trench, like I had to pull the cart across the water, and I can't do that with the lawnmower. So some sort of bridge needs to happen here. And I might do another bridge up here, maybe just something really simple. I would love to do a circle of fruit and nut trees up here, and more trees along here. Right now there's a lot of bushes. This is the little pad, like hanger pad, I call it, up here, where it used to be for airplanes. I'm going to build a grape trellis up here with a little grape trellis arch. I have a lot of space over here, so I'm hoping to put a mulberry tree over here in the future. This is where we have apples that I think are crab apples. Hoping to do kind of like a plum thicket there, maybe some cherry, maybe some stairs going up here because it's a steep slope, and some other trees. So that's like a general sketch. You can kind of see I have something similar here. I kind of filled this part out with just some different idea of what might go where. But again, I don't need to decide all of that this year. I just need to decide the part I'm planting. This is my plan for this year for what I'm planting. And I tried to do it to scale, but to be honest, the measurements in this area were a little tough. So I'm going to have to go out once the snow is melting and mark things, if I can find some poles or some rocks or something to measure and mark where I want the trees to go and make sure they have enough space and everything. But this gives you an idea, as I was showing you before. They've got the basketball court here, the solar canopy here. This is the trench. I've tried to draw it out bigger to show that I'm going to make it deeper and a little wider. I think what we'll do is dig it out and kind of make a berm on either side where we can plant pollinator plants, and then have a little path coming up next to it here. The two elderberries, I got two of two different varieties. So there's two Samdels and two Samils. I don't know if I'm saying that right at all. But so one Samdel and one Samil over here, and then one in the garden and another in the behind the house, or on the other side of the house. And then here, what I've planned is, so this is our existing pear and our existing peach. I don't know what varieties they are. I'm going to put the Liberty apple here because it is the semi-dwarf one. I'm going to put Zestar here. I'm going to put our Contender peach here. That's our new hardy peach. And Duchess of Oldenburg is probably going to be the biggest, so it's going to go back here. So that's my plan for the fruit trees. The blueberries are going on the other side of the basketball court over here, where there used to be a garden. So there's a bunch of weeds down there I need to chop down in preparation for the blueberries. But I've made a note of different varieties here, and I've gotten, so it's 9 bushes. So in each of these little groupings, there's 2 that are the same and then 1 different, in the hopes that they will pollinate each other effectively. They are, oh, now I'm not 100% remembering, but these are early mid. So one is more early, and one grouping is more early, and the other 2 are more mid season, I believe. But they should overlap with pollination a little bit as well. We'll just see how that goes. It's going to be a couple years, because the first year or 2 I'm gonna pick off the flowers and not let it go to fruit, so that I can really establish a good root system and grow and thrive before I start trying to pick the fruit. I also want to get a grouping of late ones, but they were all sold out by the time I ordered. So next year, I'll order those and put those there. would be the plan. So that's kind of my design. So you'll notice when I was designing, one of the things I was thinking about was, what do I want it to look like? Most orchards you go into would be a commercial orchard, and it's just, rows, right? Which makes sense if you have to get the tractor down there, if you want to, send customers down the rows. That just makes perfect sense. But I was like, as a home orchard, I could also just have trees placed kind of meandering, or like a mini forest, or spread out in a different way. You have a lot more flexibility as a home orchardist. I decided in the area I'm planting to kind of do rows, but it's not entirely straight. It's kind of going to be a curved row so that it kind of leads you towards the stream and towards the rest of where the orchard is going. So that was kind of my thought on that. The other ones are not really going to be in set rows either. Once we plant them, I'm going to have paths, and they'll just be along and the paths and maybe in some clumps. So that's a design choice that I made for a home orchard. I love the feeling of things being kind of whimsical and having kind of a natural feel about them. I think it makes it a little more fun, a little more magical. And I feel a little more connected to the earth if it feels more organic, right? It doesn't feel, we don't need to have straight rows because we are a home orchard. So I just wanted to mention that was my thought. I am planning on mowing paths and then doing understory plants. So next year, hopefully, we'll be able to plant some more kind of shrubby things like berry bushes and stuff that are a little bit bigger under some of the trees we've already planted, although I might want to give them another year. We'll have to see about that. But I will be planting some like herbs and pollinator plants and aromatics underneath a distance from the tree, so they have some room to grow. But that way we'll bring in pollinators, which will help once the trees are flowering, which the pear and the peach tree that we have should already flower. We did get fruit from them last year, even though we weren't here last spring, so I don't know exactly when that is. And the aromatics will help deter unwanted pests, possibly even the rabbits. We'll see how that goes. If not, I might have to take some, do some research and take some additional steps. I do plan on putting some just chicken wire around to protect the baby trees so they don't get girdled by rabbits or voles or mice. So that's a plan to help protect, but I might have to take some other steps if we seem to be having a big problem with that. I don't mind sharing some of my crop. Like once it's fruiting, like I don't mind sharing some of that, but I don't want them to kill the tree, which I think makes sense. And then, so let's see, pollinators, aromatics, herbs, well, especially plants with big tap roots. We do have clay soil. So I'm keeping that in mind, and I'm going to be trying to improve the soil. And part of that is planting these plants that have tap roots and kind of loosen the soil up. It also includes adding mycorrhizae fungi when I'm planting on the soil, like when I'm, trying to improve the microbiology and life of the soil will help make it not quite as dense. We'll see exactly how it is when I'm planting and when I do my soil tests. Okay, so I've thought through all this. I have a design for my orchard. I've actually ordered plants for my orchard. And so the next step that I'm currently in process is just a lot of research on how do I plant? What supplies do I need? So I've already started a good deal of this, as you can hear as I'm talking. I've read through this holistic orchard book. I will be ordering some of the materials and a backpack sprayer so I can spray the trees I currently have. I will be adding mycorrhizae as I'm planting the trees to the soil. I will be following his suggestions on killing the grass around the trees with cardboard and putting down compost and mulch and all that. But there's just always more to learn. So I'm constantly reading this book, looking for more to learn, watching more YouTube videos. And yeah, so that is where I am on my orchard design and planning. getting started. I'm excited to share it with you guys. So keep an eye out for my garden and orchard vlogs that hopefully will be coming more frequently as we approach spring and things start to thaw out. Yes. So if you want to see more on the garden and the orchard, please subscribe below so you don't miss anything. I also do a lot of homeschool videos and pregnancy and baby updates occasionally, as we are due with baby number 3 in June, when all of this garden and orchard will be ramping up. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later.